What's good, y'all? Y'all all know it's your boy. Them boys crazy. Y'all all know it's your boy Roy to Rob up in this month, man.
I already know what's going on, man. I know it's about Camel Fisher. Anytime you see our face, you know it's time for another reaction.
Man, this why I heard that Boo said, Boo, I ain't gonna lie, bro. Nah, I ain't gonna even say it right now. I'm just gonna get into the video, then I'm gonna say it, because I know they probably gonna speak about it throughout the video. But this why I heard Boosie, man, he had got locked up for that amount of time when it felt like a billion years with everybody.
Yeah, I'm talking about boy spent 3.5 of them things on death
Bro,
row.
we was all, bro, everybody in middle school and high school were all like, man, he was locked up for 2 years. Nah, bro, 4 years. Nah, bro, 5. I'm
That
trying to tell you,
real
3
deal was
years.
locked up for so long. It felt like
Bro, it felt like about 7 years. I ain't
it
gonna.
did, bro. Cause you gotta realize he ain't got out till we graduated high school.
For real, bro.
Man, that's crazy.
Influential artist from Louisiana, but growing up in the streets of Baton Rouge, Boosie has had many ups and downs throughout his career, including spending almost 4 years on death row for first-degree murder. Let's dive into the career and criminal history of Lil Boosie. Boosie was raised on West Garfield Street in the south side of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. His mom was a school nurse, and his pops was in the streets and also worked as a pastor. Boosie grew up in a rough neighborhood that was full of drugs and violence. As a teenager, he slowly got sucked into the street life and eventually got expelled from school. So, with basketball out of the picture and school no longer an option, Boosie started hustling to survive.
Bro, hooping for real.
Oh yeah, Boosie.
Oh, me.
Being a rapper. He started rapping in the late 90s. His cousin, Young D, plugged him in with another Baton Rouge rapper named CeeLo, who started mentoring him. In 1998, he joined a group called the Concentration Camp, which included CeeLo and also other rappers Young Bleed, Happy Perez, Boo, Max Minnelli, Javon, Lee Time, and Lucky Knuckles.
Golly.
Even though he was the youngest in the group, he was also one of the most popular. At 17, he released his debut album, Youngest at the Camp, which was a tribute to the crew that helped put him on. The album was a hit and made Boosie a local celebrity. It also gained the attention of other major names in the rap game, including Pimp C from UGK. In 2001, Boosie signed a deal with Pimp C's Trill Entertainment and released his first record on the label, For My Thugs, the following year. That was also the first album where he took the name Lil Boosie, having gone by just Boosie on his first album. In the summer of 2003, Boosie started collaborating with fellow Baton Rouge rapper Webby for the album Ghetto Stories. The duo continued collaborating over the next few years, dropping tapes like Trill Last Mixtape Volume 1 and Gangsta Music.
Yeah, buddy.
Whatever.
See, started to build Boosie a buzz all over the South, and also got the attention of representatives from Universal Music Group. So Boosie was on his way to taking over the rap game. He kept dropping projects over the next few years that established him as a legend. In 2005, he signed a deal with Warner Records and dropped his major label debut, Badass, the following year. But just as Boosie was starting to gain national recognition, he started going through legal problems that almost ended his career forever. On October 22nd, 2008, Boosie was arrested by East Baton Rouge Sheriff's deputies after they found a bag of marijuana, a blunt, and a Glock in the car he was driving. Louisiana's pretty strict on weed, so he was facing up to 20 years with a mandatory minimum of 5 for the gun. Instead, he copped a plea deal to a third-degree marijuana offense. Judge James Moore first gave Boosie a 10-year sentence with all but the first 2 years suspended, which meant he'd only have to serve about a year behind bars with good behavior. But the judge learned that Boosie violated his probation while awaiting sentencing. So he decided to double his sentence, meaning he'd be sentenced to 4 years with the expectation of serving around 2. Between his plea and sentencing, Boosie was also ordered to be electronically monitored and placed under house arrest. The verdict was handed down on November 10, 2009, and Boosie began his sentence the next day. But not long after that, he got hit with another serious charge that ain't just threatened his freedom, but also his life. On June 17, 2010, Boosie was indicted on first-degree murder charges for the death of Terry Boyd. Boyd was Boosie's baby mama's brother. He got killed on October 21st, 2009, after someone fired a 9mm handgun.
I remember this like it was yesterday. His baby mama was on the porch, and she was talking about not just specifically the situation, just everything in general and stuff. We know how she was going out saying they be out there living life, and what he stated, they come out here and it's probably, and it ain't really a whole lot.
No, yeah.
And then folks just like that ain't his problem and stuff.
From window to home he was staying at on Vermilion Drive. The house belonged to a man named Ben Hawkins, and Boyd had been staying there for about a month, ever since being released from prison after serving 5 years. Police had no DNA evidence or eyewitnesses, but neighbors claimed they spotted 2 men sprinting toward train tracks near the home after the shooting. According to prosecutors, Boosie had paid a 17-year-old named Michael Louding, also known as Marlo Mike, $2,800 to murder Boyd in a turf war. If convicted, Boosie faced the possibility of the death penalty. So, to await the trial, he was brought to death row at Angola Penitentiary, where he was on lockdown for around 23 hours a day. Marlo Mike was a well-known shooter in Baton Rouge who lived with Boosie for a little while. He got locked up multiple times as a juvenile for offenses like simple battery and robbery. He once told his mom he was hearing voices, and she tried to get him help, but he refused because it meant he'd be put in an institution. In an interview with DJ Vlad, Boosie claims that Marlo Mike had at least 9 bodies at just 15 years old. He later admitted to some of the other murders after the trial. Police arrested Marlo Mike for the murder. In a taped jailhouse confession, Mike said he killed Boyd because Boosie wanted him dead, and he was a shooter. They used phone records to trace Marlo Mike to Boosie's studio just 2 hours before the murder. Plus, 2 weeks after Boyd was killed.
It's crazy, bro. I ain't gonna need that lie, boy. I ain't gonna. It be so crazy though how, like, not even. I'm gonna just say back then. Back then, bro, them folk was real deal doing what they doing now, but didn't speak about it.
Yeah.
They didn't make no songs. They didn't talk about it. They didn't tweet none of that. It just if it happened, it happened. You don't know. Folks in the streets knew what was going on. That's crazy.
Mike got a tattoo that said, "Yo Boosie, who's next?" along with lyrics from the songs 187 and Body Bag, which were recorded the same night as the murder. Prosecutors also claimed Boosie wanted Boyd dead because he received a letter from the victim saying he was going to jack and slap him. But the actual letter was never brought into evidence. But the defense brought forward a completely different version of events. They claimed Marlo Mike was a rogue gunman who was possessed by voices that instructed him to kill. Boosie had treated Mike like a son and was even his official guardian at school. But Mike killed Boyd at the instruction of 2 different men, Michael Ghost Judson and Adrian Pittman. According to Boosie's lawyers, Ghost had a long-time grudge against Boyd, who robbed him for $720 just a few weeks before the murder. Ghost was killed on January 1st, 2010, before the trial began. Police found him on the 3300 block of Charles Street with several gunshot wounds and brought him to the hospital where he was later pronounced dead. But what really helped Boosie's case was when Marlo Mike went on stand and took back his statement. He claims the jailhouse confession was false and that he only did it because he was swayed by crooked cops. He said the officers in the jail threatened him with legal injection and said they would arrest his mom and stepdad if he didn't cooperate. He also alleged the confession was coached by prosecutors who claimed Boosie put a $25,000 bounty on his own head. Sergeant Chris Johnson also took a stand and denied making any threats toward Marlo Mike.
Oh, that crap.
The
Marlo is out here going.
Enter a few details.
The
You get the
Marlo
best
is.
offer
Ooh.
sourced from thousands.
But Boosie's lawyer, Johnson, also took a stand and denied making any threats toward Marlo Mike. But Boosie's lawyers noted that out of
You
the
wanna
hours
know
the
who
police
Boosie remind me
interrogated,
of when it comes to stuff like this?
Who?
Just off what I done heard in the folks he's been around, like Kodak Black. I ain't gonna need no lie. Like the way he moved.
I think that's why he was on him so too.
Man.
Because Kodak probably reminded him of himself.
Yeah, for real. Like,
only his confession was taped. Johnson also denied telling Mike that Boosie had put a hit out on him. But during the confession tape, Mike could be heard saying, "That dude want to kill me? He's getting out now?" Boosie also later claimed that Marlo Mike only told on him because he wanted to keep him behind bars after one of their close friends died. Mike knew what Boosie would do if he was let back out on the streets, so he told on him to keep him locked up for his own protection. But after they spoke and cleared everything up, he decided to tell the truth and admit that Boosie had nothing to do with the murder. Boosie's baby mama, Tori, Boyd's sister, also took a stand and testified that the rapper had nothing to do with the murder and that he and her brother never had any problems. But years later, she went on social media and claimed Boosie did have something to do with her brother's death and that she only testified on his behalf to protect her daughter. But without Marlo Mike's testimony and no other evidence tying Boosie to the murder, the prosecutors had a much harder case. What wasn't helping his case was the fact that while locked up, Boosie was also facing some other legal problems. Not long after being indicted for the murder of Terry Boyd, Boosie was also charged with 3 counts of intent to distribute narcotics, including marijuana, codeine, and cocaine. Investigators claim Boosie smuggled drugs into Angola on 2 separate occasions. But his lawyer said his drug conviction.
little Boosie was on that cane, boy. When he got with Pimp C, boy, they was in that car, boy. I'm talking about, woo, the folk.
He was on that cane?
Boy, he was on some of that white. He was on some of that white. Let me be real. He was on some of that white. He even said in the song when he was like, he was in the interview.
Yeah.
He like, yeah, me and Pimp C, man, you know what I'm saying? We got to get him out. We got in there, something. We was on some good drugs, some real good drugs. Come on now. And you know what Pimp C known for.
Yeah.
Come on now. We all know Pimp C known for what?
You know, from them drugs, boy.
He known for that right there, goddamn. I ain't gonna lie. R.I.P. Pimp C, you are a legend.
Man.
But you know what I'm saying? Now, don't let me get to talking saying you was on that Boosie. My bad. I ain't mean disrespect.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying,
Yeah,
if you talking about good drugs, and you doing this right here. It can't just be no. Know what I'm saying?
No way proved that he was also connected to the murder. On November 29, 2011, Boosie pled guilty to the drug charges and was sentenced to 8 years in prison. But a few months later, on May 11, 2012, he was found not guilty of the murder of Terry Boyd. The jury reached a unanimous verdict after only discussing the case for 10 minutes. But luckily, Boosie's lawyers also managed to get the drug charges dropped as well. They were able to prove that the alleged drug ring was actually a setup. A police informant offered to provide Boosie with codeine syrup in exchange for his help smuggling the drugs into prison. Boosie agreed because he was an admitted codeine addict. So, his lawyers were able to get the drug charges dismissed, and Boosie was released as a free man on March 5, 2014. Marlo Mike ended up taking the fall for Terry Boyd's murder, and on top of that, he also admitted to carrying out a crime spree that lasted 14 months, leading to the deaths of at least 6 different people. His confessions also led to the indictment of 6 other men from Baton Rouge. Because he was a minor at the time of the murders, Marlo Mike was not eligible for the death penalty. So, they gave him life in prison for the murder of Terry Boyd and wrapped the other cases into that conviction. One of the most shocking admissions from Marlo Mike was that he was responsible for killing Chris Newsy Jackson, who was an up-and-coming rapper and one of Boosie's longtime rivals. Newsy was killed on February 9, 2009 after getting shot in the head. Boosie was never charged in connection with the murder, but he was named as a primary suspect after the FBI received information that he had put out a $30,000 hit on his head. The two was beefing before his murder, with Boosie releasing a diss track called What Goes Up Must Come Down. Since being released from prison, Boosie has mostly stayed out of trouble with the law and focused on his music career. But back in April 2019, he got arrested again for possession of a firearm during the commission of a crime, possession of Schedule I narcotics, failure to maintain a lane, and possession of marijuana. He was in Newnan, Georgia, with a co-defendant named Antonio Allen. Police officers say that they noticed a white Dodge Challenger swerving in and out of his lane. When they pulled the car over, they smelled weed, so they decided to search the car. During the search, they found 11 grams of marijuana, a loaded 9mm handgun, a bag full of cash, and a dab pen. Boosie also admitted to talking on the phone while driving and told police that Allen was his bodyguard. The police determined that the car was a rental from Florida, but was not registered to either Boosie or Allen, so both men were arrested and hit with gun and drug charges. Luckily, Boosie was already off probation for his previous drug convictions. So, in February 2020, he pled guilty to the charges and was sentenced to 6 months of probation and a $1,000 fine. Since then, he stayed out of trouble with the law. Instead, he's focused his attention on beefing with Lil Nas X, the CEO of Instagram, for constantly deleting his account. But Lil Boosie will always be a legend in the rap game.
For sure.
He's had a crazy career full of ups and downs, but has always stayed true to himself, which is what's helped him stay relevant for all these years.
Man, I miss a Boosie, man. I ain't gonna.
I gotta meet that man one day.
For real, bro. Lil Boosie. I gotta say I'm tired of me,
I
really.
ain't gonna lie, he be showing love too, bro. Like,
Yeah.
I met with Boosie, and it's
Hey,
crazy because it's
boy.
like, my boy still, like, relevant, you know what I'm saying?
I have a challenge for
I feel
all of
like
you. Go
he
to
one of
every
them
computer in your house.
He one of them ones that's never, everybody know who he is, they gonna know who he is till he die.
I feel like I'm being real, and this ain't no disrespect at all, none at all. I feel like Boosie's still relevant. Not saying his music, cause of course his music too. Just cause he was like one of the realest
I
in the
couldn't
game.
say that
for
based
real.
off based off real.
Like, he's so real, like he can drop some terrible, but you just gotta,
One thing
you gotta
about you
respect
gonna
it.
support everything that man do. I
real.
don't care if you go out and buy the noodles, chips,
Man,
movie, cologne,
Me.
alcohol, whatever it is. Like he just one of the ones where, like, we might watch some on bootleg or something, but just cause Boosie dropped the movie, we gonna go buy it.
gotta go.
You know
get
what I'm saying?
it. Got
Like
to.
he just one of the
Real.
ones where you just like, nah, I'm really feeling support for real. That's
Yeah.
just how it is with Boosie. I feel like he just one of the ones who show so much love. You gotta give him the same respect. Honestly.
Me, that's why I said I remember Boosie so tough, bro. If y'all like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you like the rest, don't forget to subscribe. This your boy, the boy Crazy, and we out.